Let's continue to break down the cost of living with our eNCA business anchor, Rupiwa Madzena. Rupiwa, break down the numbers for us. We did hear one of the viewers there saying that we will have to come up with innovative ways ourselves because nobody's coming to help us.
And it's a difficult thing to do generally, and because despite the fact that we've seen lower interest rates, 3 interest rate cuts, what people were doing to get by was relying on extra debt. So whatever extra money they were now getting from those cuts is servicing that debt. So being innovative is going to be a little bit tricky, right? But let's give our viewers a sense of the annual inflation or increases that we are seeing. And we're talking about the cost of living crisis, which has become a pressing issue for many households, with essential services and goods seeing a substantial price increase year after year, from soaring electricity bills, you'll remember from last week, to rising costs in healthcare and the ever-inflating prices of everyday utilities. Many are feeling the strain. So what once seemed like a stranded expenses have now become burdens that weigh heavily on our budgets. So let's just take a look at that. When we speak about electricity, we saw that announcement of the tariff increases last week by NERSA to Eskom, granting them an above-inflation increase, and that takes the annual rise in electricity to 11.4% for the average household. When we look at food, so food was the big contributor to the big inflation that we saw in the early days of 2022 to 2023. That has now eased somewhat, but the overall increase still about 1.7% for basic food items. And then you take a look at the fuel prices. So this is a little bit confusing, because despite the fact that we are seeing an increase in fuel come this month, we are seeing that it is a 10.2% cheaper than we were paying for it last year. But hopefully, with more supply coming into the system when it comes to oil, that number will continue to decline. And then, of course, we've seen an increase in healthcare services. So that's a 4.3% rise in services and products. And if you're on medical aid, unfortunately for you, brace yourself for an 8 to 14% hike in premiums this year. And then finally, utilities like water and municipal services have gone up by 5.5% annually, putting a little bit more pressure on your expenses. Generally, Paul, I don't know if you have felt that in your household budgets as consumers in the country.
Absolutely. You know, I'm looking at that decrease in the fuel price, and I've not felt that.
Yeah.
In my own personal purse, which is really making me wonder. I think the reason why I didn't feel it is because of the rest of the things that have increased.
So whatever money you've got has got to go to all the other increases that you've got as a household in South Africa.